Let's talk Sword Art Online, the movie, progressive, Aria of a Starless Night. Link stato. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch Our Pass, and I am very excited to talk to you about Sword Art Online, the movie, progressive, Aria of a Starless Night. So this is the second Sword Art Online movie. The first movie was called Sword Art Online, the movie, Ordinal Scale, and that took place after the events of the first season of Sword Art Online. Kind of brought the Sword Art Online world to the real world. This movie takes place as kind of a prequel slash, I don't know, retelling of the first episode. It tells the first couple episodes of the series from Asuna's view. So you get a little bit more of Asuna from the start that we didn't have before, and then you get to see what happened to Asuna right after the start of the Sword Art Online story arc. So my hot take is, look, I'm a big Sword Art Online fan. I liked it, but it did feel a little bit like a rehash. I mean, the film basically covers the period before episodes 1 and 2 from Asuna's perspective, and then episodes 1 and 2 of the series. And it is very similar. I mean, there are scenes that I recognize because this is a canon movie, so it doesn't change too much. It tweaks a few things, but it doesn't change too much. So there are a lot of scenes that I recognize, a lot of events that happen. I mean, they do look sharper, they do look more beautiful. This is a very wonderfully animated movie, but it did feel a little bit like a rehash, almost like a new game plus. I'm going to talk to you about things I liked about the movie, talk about things I didn't like, and go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to know what happens in the film, turn this off. Go check it out when it comes to theaters on December 3rd, 2021. But if you don't really know, or if you've seen the first episode of Sword Art Online, you basically know what happens anyways, then let's keep going. So things I liked about this movie. The first is the animation. It is beautiful animation. I'd kind of forgotten how much I love this world. So basically took the style of the first season and just made everything sharper, everything more beautiful, everything more dynamic. I mean, it looks really, really good. I actually went back and rewatched the first couple episodes of Sword Art Online just to kind of refresh myself and see if I was actually remembering right, if this did follow basically the first 2 episodes. And it is the same style, but it looks much older. The movie is beautiful. It is gorgeous animation. If you like Sword Art Online, if you like animation, you are going to love it. The second thing I loved is, hey, it's Sword Art Online. I'd forgotten how much I really kind of missed this world and missed this series. And even like little things. So I just finished up Sword Art Online, Elicitation, War of the Underworld. I wanted to get that finished before I watched this movie. And in that series, some of the game elements that were present in Sword Art Online in the first season, and also I think in some of the subsequent ones, they weren't present in Elicitization, and I'd forgotten how much I liked that. I like seeing the health bar for the characters. I like some of the game menu stuff that they have. Having this back in a beautifully animated version was really nice. It was really good to see. I was really happy when I saw these little elements, some of like the healing potions, some of the monster, stats and things like that. I missed all those, and so you get it back. Plus, because it's also the first season of Sword Art Online, you get some of the characters you love. You get Kirito and Asuna. You also get Klein, and then you get a new character that's introduced for this movie called Mito. So seeing them all back, seeing them all together, again, it brought a smile to my face. I do love this series. This is one of the series that kind of got me back into anime, and so there you go. If you missed them, they're all back. The third thing I loved is the music and the sound effects. And like I said, I kind of have been reminiscing about Sword Art Online, and the music and the sound effects are no different. You get those same kinds of sounds, the same style of video game sound effects throughout the film, and then you also get that music that happens during battles, especially during like a boss battle. That music coming on really just brought a smile to my face. It brought me back to the original series, and so I think that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to kind of retell the first story, but maybe up it. It's kind of like a remaster essentially. So things I didn't love, and this, take this with a grain of salt, because I did love this movie, and I definitely think that you should watch it if you're a Sword Art Online fan. But it's basically the same thing as that we've already seen. You get about 30 minutes of new content because you get Asuna before she dies in the Iron Card, and then you get some of the like player select stuff, some of her character creation that happens, and you get to see a little bit what happens to her at the very start. So maybe it's like 40 minutes of new stuff, but a lot of that is mixed in with things you already know, like the scene when they all get trapped in this world. You've seen that before, except now it looks much better. You get to see when she meets Kirito, the first kind of boss raid conference. You get to see all of that just in higher res. And then you get to see that first boss fight again in higher res. And now you have a new character that was introduced. So other than a few small things, it's maybe like 60 to 70% stuff you've already seen. It just looks much better. So it really is kind of like a remaster. Maybe like a new game plus, like if you beat a game, you get a new game plus. Maybe there's a little bit of a tweak. Here, the tweak is you get a new character. And so you get this new character, Mito, who Asuna knows from the real world, who is kind of the person that convinced her to play Sword Art Online at the start. And then you get to see Asuna and her from the start of their adventure. And then she participates in the main boss fight. And I went back and rewatched it. She's not in the first 2 episodes. I think she was made for the progressive story, the progressive series. And it kind of beefs up Asuna's storyline, explains a little bit how she learned how to play the game. But again, it was a lot of a rehash. It was a very beautiful rehash. I keep going back to it. It is really, really nice looking, and it was really good to be back in this series, but it does feel like something I've seen before. I kind of wish that maybe they would have done what Ordinal Scale did. Ordinal Scale told a different story that had like a bigger budget, really beautiful animation. But again, it was something that happened outside of the main arcs. And I kind of wish that they would have done that. I wish that maybe we could revisit Gun Gale. I miss Gun Gale. I liked that season a lot. We could go see what happens after Ordinal Scale. We could maybe see another in the real world type situation. Just anything that we haven't seen before. It would have been nice. So the second thing I didn't love is I don't really know where it's going to go from here, because the movie ends essentially in episode 2. So I don't know if they're going to redo the Sword Art Online series, maybe in a higher res, maybe with new animation. Look, if they did that, I would be very happy. I'd rewatch it. I would love to see it kind of lovingly remastered and re-experience it. It sounds like they're going to just leave the Sword Art Online progressive series as movies. They already announced a new movie coming in 2022, Sword Art Progressive, Scherzo of a Dark Dusk. So they do have really great titles. But it sounds like maybe they're going to have Progressive tell a few stories during the first season with new animation and maybe a few tweaks to the story. But again, that might feel a little bit hollow, because I do kind of want to see their take on the entire story arc. I'd like to re-experience Sword Art Online. I wouldn't mind if they did that. And the last thing I didn't love, and this is very minor, is the title. The title is Aria of a Starless Night. I don't really know if that line was mentioned in the film. It didn't really even take place at night, so I'm not sure where that title came from. It felt a little silly, but again, that's very minor. I don't really care that much about it, but it was just something that was a little odd for me. I was expecting maybe something different. So here's how the movie ends, and a lot of this is kind of Asuna and Mito and how they end up leveling, and then how what happens between them that then causes Asuna to party up with Kirito. So Asuna, Mito was a beta tester, and she kind of takes Asuna under her wing because she knows the ropes and Asuna's her friend. And so they start right when the lockdown happens. They go out and they start leveling up because Mito knows that they're going to have to stay ahead of the curve, or else they're going to fall behind. So while they're doing that, eventually they run into some plant monsters, and they're pretty strong at this point, so they handle them decently. But Asuna accidentally attacks this plant monster that has some fruit on it, and what happens when she does that is this smoke or this dust pollen appears, and all of a sudden there's a million plant monsters. Like they appear everywhere, and Asuna and Mito get separated. Mito accidentally falls down a cliff and it has to fight her way back up, and they're partied up. So while she's doing this, she sees that Asuna's health is going down. When Asuna's health gets pretty low, Mito is like too scared to see her friend die. She doesn't want to be in the party when that happens, so she just runs away and unparties. And Asuna looks like she's about to die because she gets all of the plant monsters done, and then there's this like dinosaur gorilla monster that attacks her, and it's about to kill her when Kirito comes. Kirito comes, he saves her. So I think she's a little in shock, and so she doesn't go with Kirito. She kind of then, after Kirito leaves, he gives her some potions and some supplies, and then he leaves. She decides that she wants to just kind of end it. It sounds like she almost wants to commit suicide. She basically wants to control her destiny. So she goes on a rampage, goes to the boss dungeon, and just starts fighting in there. She's fighting in the dungeon for a very long time, and eventually she runs into Kirito. And Kirito notices that she is overexerting herself. She's using like super powerful attacks to kill monsters when she doesn't have to. And so he's basically saying like, look out, you're overexerting yourself. You're gonna run out of energy. And he tells her that she has to calm down because she needs to think about the return trip. It's not just getting out here and fighting the monsters. They have to fight their way back. And she basically is like, that don't worry about me. Like I'm not planning on returning. But in true Kirito fashion, he eventually saves her when she gets a little overwhelmed, and then takes her and drags her out of the dungeon and heals her up. So after this, he offers to, basically was like, look, if you're gonna fight, if you're gonna try to exert yourself, at least come go to the boss raid meeting. We're having the boss raid meeting. Everyone's gonna try to take out the boss of the first floor. We have to keep fighting our way up to get out of this. And so Asuna, I think, is intrigued, and so they go to the boss meeting. And that is where it gets back to kind of the main storyline. So you've seen this before. They're in like a coliseum. Uh, Mito is there. She doesn't recognize Asuna because she's got like a cloak over her, but Mito is there, and she wasn't in the TV show. I went back and like rewatched that scene. I didn't see her, so I don't think she was in there. But she's here in the movie, and so Kirito and Asuna team up, and they get ready for the boss raid. And so when the boss raid happens, you'll remember Kirito and Asuna are there to fight off like the Kobold guards, and there's 3 teams that are fighting the boss, and then 3 teams that are fighting all the boss enemies to make sure that the boss team doesn't get hurt. So everything's going well. They're taking down the boss until the last phase. The last phase, what happens is the boss essentially pulls out this weapon and does this move that no one thought or that no one had planned for. And so he disrupts everything. People start to panic. But during this phase, Asuna saves Mito. And this is where Mito finally finds out that Asuna's alive. She pulls off her cloak and reveals that it's her. And Mito tries to apologize for running away, but Asuna just basically says like, look, we got to clear the game. Let's keep going. We have to survive. And so they start fighting the boss. And while they're doing this, Mito gives Asuna this rare weapon that they got right before they separated, right before Mito thought that Asuna had died. She picked up this rare weapon that she was going to give to Asuna, and so she finally gives it to her here, and it's powerful. So hey, Asuna gets a little bit more powerful. So now we have Kirito, Asuna, and Mito all fighting the boss, and so they take turns. They sync up pretty well. This is a new aspect of that fight, because in the TV show, it was just Kirito and Asuna fighting the main boss at the end. But now we have Asuna, Kirito, and Mito. So this is very similar to what happens in the TV show. So now you have Kirito, Mito, and Asuna all fighting, and they all combine. They all play off pretty well. It's a really well animated fight. It's a really beautiful fight, and they do a good job combining their attacks to eventually take down the boss. So now that the boss is dead, some of the players get angry at Kirito and all the beta testers because they basically accuse them of holding back information. They say like, look, one of our people died because you didn't tell us that this boss had this special attack. And this is where Kirito does his beater thing, where he says like, oh, like I'm so much better than you. I'm both a beta tester and a cheater. I'm a beater. And then he like storms off. And I think if I remember right from the show, it was to like give them someone to focus their anger on. So they band together and like become stronger and do well to try to like take him down. So he did it for like the good of the server. Again, I thought it was a weird thing in the TV show. It was weird in the movie as well. I don't love that storyline, but I guess it's canon, so it has to happen. So Kirito activates the portal to the second floor, and then here is another change. Asuna goes with him. She meets up with Mito and basically is like, she says that she's found how she's going to live in this world, and she's moving forward and going with Kirito. And she says goodbye to Mito. I don't understand why they couldn't all be in a party. Like, why couldn't Mito just join them? They fought really well together, and they're friends, or at least Asuna is friends with both of them. So why can't they all be a party? I don't know. I think it would have been more interesting if they were all stayed a party. But Asuna says goodbye to Mito, and then she goes up and goes with Kirito to the second floor, the second level. And this second level is really beautiful. Like the animation, again, it's a really stunning kind of way to end. Kirito and Asuna talk about how they're going to get stronger. So Asuna then says she's found something she's going to live for. It's a secret, but she's going to get stronger. And then they head off to the second floor to presumably become stronger. And you get a little cameo at the very end from Argo. She's kind of behind a rock, peers out as they're entering the second floor, and she says essentially, so these are the top 2 players. This should be interesting. And that's the movie. That's the end. So again, it basically ends right where episode 2 does. And there's a few small tweaks to the story, a few small tweaks to what happens that I think could be interesting if they were going to do an entire rework of the series. It doesn't sound like they are. It sounds like they're going to tell some discrete stories. I wonder if maybe the next movie will have like a what happened, maybe update us on a few of the major events between when Aria of a Starless Night ended and when Shezo of a Dark Dusk starts. But we'll find out. We'll find out in 2022. That is Sword Art Online Progressive Aria of a Starless Night. Again, if you're a Sword Art Online fan, or if you haven't seen the series, you'll probably like it. It's a really good introduction to the whole series. But if you've seen it already and maybe you're not that big of a fan, you're gonna feel like a little bit of deja vu here. So I think my recommendation would be to rent it. But if you're a fan, you're gonna see it in theaters and enjoy it. It's really well done. So thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.